Hey guys, how you doing? I just realized I'm scratching my ear every time I say, "Hey guys, how you doing?" That's kind of weird. That's gotta be a subconscious thing. Anyhow, so tonight, it's actually 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. Um, anyhow, can't sleep. Uh, it's the whole pandemic thing, but that and I'm under quarantine at the moment. Uh, my family has developed COVID, with the exception of me, so I get to really hang out in my kitchen all the time. But anyhow, different topics, different time. So tonight I was sitting here thinking about the necessity of global economics. I know you're thinking, what's that got to do with fish, woodworking? This falls into the thoughts and things category. So on the thing with global economics, and I base this on more of the thought of thinking of the America first thing. And not that we shouldn't think. I heard a guy say one time, it was just a few years ago, if you can't keep your own yard up, you shouldn't be over helping your neighbor's yard. And that I agree with to some extent. Here's the problem with that mentality now. We have been in a mostly global economy for so long that to try to come out of it would be almost counterproductive to uh, the way life as we know it is. Um, and most of that would be on the financial side, I believe. I mean, now there would be some things, because there are just some things that, even from a product side of life, that we can't really get from here. Kind of an odd example would be like dragon fruit. I really like dragon fruit. The problem with that is, you can buy it now at any grocery store. I mean, any grocery store. But hi, Sarah. But without global trade and economy, dragon fruit only grows in like two places in the entire world. Thailand's one of them. So if we didn't have the ability to buy and sell and trade um, with other countries, we would never have dragon fruit. Coffee used to be the same way. It still might be the same way. I don't think it is. But, it only came from South America at one point in life. And had to be shipped in. Avocados, if everybody likes avocados, there wouldn't be enough in the U.S. to have them. Um, so we need export and import, which all leads to a global economy, which kind of takes away from the America first thing. Like I said, I firmly believe that you should be cutting your own grass before you cut your neighbors, but at the same time, you can cut your own grass while cutting your neighbors. I mean, I live in a half double. I would think nothing of cutting the other half of my lawn, even though it's not mine, it's my neighbor's responsibility. That's really dumb. Cut the whole thing at once. Um, I mean, not only do you have that product availability, you have the cost of things. A lot of things. I'm not for shipping jobs overseas per se. I would like to think everything could be made in the U.S., but the reality of that is this. It's very expensive to live here, comparatively. Most modern nations that aren't developing, I should say developed countries, it's kind of expensive to live in. It costs a lot more to live here in Ohio than it does to say live in Puerto Rico, or any place in South or Central America for the most part. I mean, there's a lot of places. I could list a million places, but it's more expensive to live here than it is, say, in a developing country, or in some cases, a third world country. So, that being said, let's think about what it would cost. We'll even just talk clothing for a second. Um, so you like say like Nike is your brand, you know. Well, Nike's now even on the low end, retail wise, not on sale, just standard, is right around we'll say $110 for a pair of tennis shoes, which in my opinion is a bit pricey. I've owned Nikes. I don't find them a whole lot better than any others. I still wear them out quick. No tennis shoe is designed for anybody that's on their feet for 50 to 60 hours plus a week. If there is one out there, let me know because I've yet to find one cheap or expensive. But anyhow, back to the point, or back to the thought. Um, if you were to take those Nikes and make them here in the U.S., you went from paying somebody probably, and not that I'm agreeing with the wage, but somebody, let's say $3 an hour or even $2 an hour to make those shoes that cost you 120 bucks, which isn't right to begin with. But if you brought that to the U.S., chances are good that if Nike had to produce their stuff in the U.S., it would cost them a lot more than that because they would have to have employees that they would have to pay $18 to $20 an hour, which still isn't a living wage. But then all of a sudden, the cost of your Nike tennis shoes that say cost 100 bucks now cost 170 bucks, and that's on the low end because we would be producing them here. Um, Shirts and clothes, everyday shirts and clothes. Now I'm not talking high end movie star, clothes. I'm talking regular made in Indonesia clothes, or in India. Clothes where they can pay somebody 50 cents an hour versus what we'd have to pay them here. All that. What happens is there's a balance and harmony to everything, and by moving it around and making it here, it costs more. So let's say we did bring those jobs back here, and let's say we're willing to pay $250 for a cheap pair of Nikes, or $60 for this T-shirt, $70 for this T-shirt, or whatever. So what happens there is we're no longer, and maybe this is some kind of a globalist, but now we've just put some small city, town, village in distress because that plant might have been their major source of income. Even Apple is overseas to get a good majority of the parts for their phones, all over, not just like the Asian market, but all over the other side of the planet, providing jobs on a global scale. Other than your mom and pop businesses, some, we'll say middle to small businesses, even middle large businesses, are here in the U.S., but some of your bigger countries or your bigger companies are serving their products all over the world. So it would be cheaper to put them there. If we could live on, $5-6 an hour or $300 a month, $400 a month, I'm sure they'd be less inclined to leave here. Never mind the tax issues that come with being here, which is another thing I want to touch on here in a minute. But these are the reasons why we have a global economy. Now, we didn't start out this way, obviously. Some things we did. Imagine trying to get spices for cooking. That would be insane because a lot of those spices don't come from here. They come from other countries. And if you do any research into the history on that, you'll see, for the longest time, if you lived in England, you couldn't get things like paprika unless somebody went to Asia to pick it up, or, cumin or things like that. Those things didn't exist in a normal kitchen, but they do now because we have a global society. This is the importance of it. So, I'm not saying we shouldn't be America first. We should be thinking about us a little more, but not completely. We still need a global economy, and even the tariffs and things like that we're placing on items that are coming in aren't a good idea. Um, they hurt us. They hurt the country that we're putting the tariffs on. You know, uh, and all it does is cause a rise in prices. Like right now, wood is so expensive for me to buy because of the new trade deals that we did with Canada and Mexico. It drove up the cost of lumber, to the people who are bringing it in. Now you could say, well, we could just get our lumber here, and you're right, we could, except for the amount of lumber that's used in the U.S. We only can sustain about, I want to say I read it one time, it's 12 to 13% of that. The rest of that comes from Canada. So you know, it's not like we're not thinking America first. We don't have enough of that particular thing to be America first. And it's like that with a lot of products in general. So the other thing I wanted to touch on was trickle down economics. Now, this is like anything else in the world that sounds like it's good it sounds great on paper, but the reality of it is it doesn't work. And I only bring this up because it's kind of topical to what we were just talking about. But I had a discussion with this with some of my teenagers at work about what is trickle down economics. How does it work? So here's kind of the basics of it. This is like a beginner's lesson on it. And there's more to it than this, but this is like the beginner version. So what happens in trickle down economics is the U.S. government, usually enacted by the president, offers tax cuts and incentives to U.S. businesses. Now, with those tax cuts, the U.S. businesses are supposed to do a couple things. They're not told they have to do this, but it's things they would like to see happen. One of them is grow their company. Maybe buy new buildings, open up a new factory, buy new equipment, repair old equipment. The other thing, what I think is the more important thing, not that they're not both important, but is take care of their people and hire more people. It's supposed to stimulate job growth and stimulate the economy. And on paper, it could work. Here's the problem with it. You have two kind of issues with it that kind of bring it to a grinding halt. This presidency that's getting ready to end is the fourth time in my lifetime I've seen trickle down economics try and work. The first problem is they get a tax break. They want to do the right thing. Most companies do. Now, I mean, there's some big businesses where they're like, oh, hold it all up and let's give it to the shareholders. But most businesses, medium, small, and medium large businesses, want to do the right thing by their people and their company by letting it grow. But a lot of times they're thinking to themselves, okay, our president's only here for 4 years. So what happens when the next president comes along and changes the tax code? So a lot of companies, and I get this, I understand this completely, to help protect the now so they can guarantee to have a future, don't always save or spend that money. They save it wisely for things that could go wrong, like tax increases, because tax increases can happen anywhere, state, federal, city, it's all kind of the same. But that could go up, and that could cost the company money in the long run, especially if they're in a growth spurt and doing very well. The economy might be chugging along a little better, and they're being very profitable, and they're able to save that money back. Now, the other thing that happens is kind of a bad thing, and that's if you've got shareholders, or extension of market because you're publicly traded. A lot of times that money you save ends up going to your stockholders in your trades, which I don't think is good practice at all. I mean, if you own stocks, or you're a shareholder, that's great. Your money, you just made money on it. But for the most part, most companies, I think, set that money back and plan for the future. It would be different if, you know, we knew we had a long enough term president where they could, or our government wasn't going to just pull the carpet right out from underneath of them and say, well, no, now you got to pay more in taxes. Then they could do things like buy better equipment, hire more people to stimulate more growth in their business and help the economy, and still see how their profit margin is going to turn out. Problem is business is like government. It just doesn't work fast like that. Even the smallest business isn't super fast. So, I mean, that's kind of what, what they look at. One other thing real quick. I know this video is running into the 20-minute range, but if you ever wonder what your company does with their money, especially small to middle companies, you go, well, good God, they made $15 million last year. Well, here's the thing with that. It sounds great, but if you're only thinking about, well, they only pay me $20 an hour, they can afford to give me a pay raise. But how many people are they paying $20 an hour? When you pay insurance, you pay, not only do you pay insurance, but the company pays insurance on you. They make up part of that. But anyhow, I'll save that for a different time, as this video has gone long enough. At any rate, but I really wanted to touch on why we weren't bringing jobs, why it's not smart to bring jobs back to the U.S. altogether. I'm not saying we shouldn't bring some stuff back, but it would wreck an economy, not even on the U.S. side, but on the global side. And if you're going to cut your yard and you see your neighbor's needs cut them both at the same time. All right, I love you, and you have a good night, and I will talk to you later. All right, bye.